with conversations that last. Sit back, relax, sit in the group chat, the Jovonta Patton Podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. Drop a comment. YouTube, I'm on your head. Facebook, TikTok. YouTube, I'm on your head. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Jovonta Patton Podcast. Today, I have a CEO and just a man that is absolutely incredible. I would do a long introduction, but then that'll take away from the actual interview part. But with no further ado, welcome this author to the book, How I Found Myself in the Midwest, the Steve Grove. Clap your hands for Steve, everybody. Virtual hands, virtual hands. Hi, Steve. Thank you for coming to my podcast. I still am pinching myself how we know each other, and
me too.
I feel like I don't know where your belief is, but I know it's like God for me. You know, it's like this is a great connection. But before you and I got to know each other, our kids came. My kids and your kids did like a birthday party or something like that, and my wife
meet your kids. That's how you make friends these days.
Exactly, and my wife had brought a gift. I remember them getting a gift. Like, we're going to a birthday party, and I didn't know who birthday party it was. Maybe I should be a little bit more involved. But it was your kid. And so I sang at one place. I saw you there. And I just remember seeing your face. I was like, I remember him. You introduced me. And then we saw each other.
That was fun.
At like a kids thing at the school. And then
I think it was the MLK Day celebration that you sang at, which was just stunning.
Memory.
It was a great performance. I was emceeing that with Shauna Smith Baker. And then we met after that. And just a huge fan of your career and what you're doing. And it's fun to get you in your podcast. Is there anything you don't do? That's my question for you.
Listen, I need to get like you, but I'm trying to get like you. So you moved back to Minnesota in 2018, and you were born in Iowa, but then you were raised in Minnesota, but you left. Did you go to school in Minnesota?
I grew up going to school here in grade school, of course, but went to college in California. And like a lot of Minnesotans, you grow up here and you're thinking, I want to get out of Dodge and explore the world. And that's what I did. There's more to it than snow drifts and what have you.
So you left and you went to California. What part of California?
Small school called Claremont McKenna College in Southern California. Played football, ran track. It was really fun. Small school. And then spent a couple years abroad. Taught English in Japan and spent time in India and in Thailand volunteering. Also just kind of trying to figure it out, you know. Earned enough money through teaching English in Japan to do a bit of travel. And then came back in my mid-20s for a hot second, like any self-respecting 25-year-old. And lived with my parents for a bit to figure out the next step. Save some money. But then ended up out on the East Coast and then a career in tech. And then, 6 years ago, came back to Minnesota. Kind of a boomerang story. There's not that uncommon in Minnesota. But part of what inspired the book was, it wasn't for me just coming back to the state that I grew up in, which I never thought I'd do, but have really found enriching, but also leaving Google, leaving tech, and joining government kind of before the pandemic hit. And the book covers that chapter. So you have done tech,
government. Now you're an author. You're a dad. How do you go from different career choices like that? Like, it's not like, I am in tech and then now I move from Google to Apple. You move from Google to government. Like, the G's are just very broad. Like, what did you go to school for, and how did you just shift careers like that?
Well, I was a liberal arts major in college. I studied philosophy, politics, and economics. I guess I benefited in some ways from not having a super crisp career direction in my own sense of it. I felt a bit more like I might have some different chapters. When I was young, I just wanted to write. I thought I wanted to do journalism, and that was really what I thought my future was going to be. And I enjoyed a chapter in that space. But technology has changed journalism so quickly that when YouTube was created, I was like, gosh, there's something here. It's this brand new viral platform. I remember, in my late 20s, there was a moment in rural Virginia where this politician was captured on a video camera using a racial slur, and someone put it on YouTube, and he thought he was just talking to like 20 voters in rural Virginia, but in fact it went viral on YouTube. This is the first time you'd ever seen a viral video online of politics. Now it happens all the time, but back then it was new, and it really kind of ushered in this new era of YouTube politics, because the senator, his name was George Allen, lost his Senate seat. You could see these platforms were going to be used for politics, and so that kind of sparked a shift or a reinvention for me to say, what about technology? Maybe I could do some good at YouTube. It was a platform that was still just kind of figuring itself out. And so that kind of shifted my career vision for tech, and that's where I spent the next 12 years, those early days of the internet.
Wow.
Yeah, we were trying to do a lot of new stuff.
So you were working at Google, and this is during the time where Obama is running for president, or he's president?
When he was running for president was when I started, and we got him convinced to use a YouTube channel to help grow his campaign. They were very smart about it.
And you interviewed him.
I interviewed him
in the back after they brought him to Google. He came up. You told us that he came upstairs to the Google office.
Yeah.
And y'all did an interview. Him and his team. Y'all just did an interview, and he said, "Let's go."
Yeah. I mean, I have to hand it to him as a candidate. He was willing to take a risk. Back then, that was a really weird thing to do.
That was a very weird thing to do. You guys did it backstage.
Yeah. I mean, now it's like just what you do, right? Like podcasts like this have more influence than some of the major networks, right? YouTube creators have these major followings. Obama kind of got that earlier than most and was willing to give it a swing. And that started a tradition. For 8 years, we interviewed Obama using YouTube videos or YouTube creators. He reached a whole new audience. I got to shepherd those things through and with a great team kind of build them out. And this was the phase of the internet, frankly, Jovonta, where everything seemed like upside. It was just like all this stuff's going to do is topple unnecessary power structures, give voice to the voiceless. I think that's true. I think today you see big tech doing a lot of things that aren't exactly positive. I think we all know that as parents and as people, but back then it was kind of a different age.
Absolutely. And just the fact that you worked at Google and YouTube, just to see what it has become today, were there planning meetings back then for this era, or did this just evolve and they just have, stewarded what has evolved well?
That's a great question. I would like to say people in tech are clairvoyant enough to see into the future. I think there's some really smart people in Silicon Valley, but it's really hard to have predicted all that's transpired. I actually think that's one of the problems we have in society today is that technology is moving so fast that our culture kind of can't keep up with it.
That is
true.
And,
you see that at YouTube and Google, certainly for me and others. You see it today with artificial intelligence. Part of the reason I was inspired to join government for sort of a next chapter of reinvention is the sense that maybe government could play a more forward-leaning role to help grow tech ecosystems outside the Valley. Nothing wrong with Silicon Valley. Got a lot of friends there. I love it. But here in Minnesota, there's actually a pretty innovative economy too. And the opportunity to have technologies created in the heartland, it just changes the kind of stuff that gets built, right? The technologies that get built here aren't just trying to grab your attention. They're trying to save lives.
They're trying to save lives. Because a lot of medical things
huge med tech sector.
Are like done here. So tell me why you named the book I Found Myself in the Midwest, because clearly being in Silicon Valley, doing an internship in Japan, I think it was, did you say?
Teaching for a bit.
In Japan. So saying I found myself in the Midwest, that is pretty like question mark when you have traveled the best place and you've had the best jobs in these places. So how did you get that title? I mean, it's kind of obvious, but we want to hear it from you.
Well, I'm a little self-conscious about it, honestly, because it's kind of a self-focused title, and the book that I really wanted to write, and I think did write, is more about this community and our state, although it is a personal journey. But the title kind of fit when we came up with it, because it was both, how did I find myself back here when I had never planned to, but also kind of what I personally discovered in that journey. And the book goes into these themes, but for me, coming back home wasn't just, I'll try a different job or something. It was about kind of circling back home to my roots a bit and, reconciling with my parents on issues of spirituality. I talk about finding my own spiritual path, which has been incredibly rewarding, but kind of grew up in an evangelical family where I didn't feel like that matched my own religious...
Evangelicals, they are very...
it was a certain way to grow up. I grew up in kind of the satanic panic, right? Remember those days?
Satanic panic. That is good.
That time when it was like we thought that the Satanists were going to try to rule the world and they were kidnapping kids for sex. There was a lot of rumors, a lot of fear. And so I grew up with a relationship to religion that felt quite fear-based and guilt-based. And I wanted to come back to it. And my parents had also evolved since those days and when I was young. And so coming home, at least piece of the story for me was finding a church that felt more connected to me and my family and our kids. And a bit more rooted in service. But I do think spiritual communities are really worthwhile and useful. I know you know this better than anybody. The kind of the lack of trust in churches these days, the lack of membership in the last 20 years is pretty stunning. But I think that is not something that is irreversible. And in fact, I would argue that spiritual communities are some of the richest ones that we have. And at a time when community in our country feels like it's suffering, I would say spiritual communities are one of the answers to building it back. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's good to hear that you are a evolved evangelical.
Yeah.
Everybody has their views, and you just have to respect it. So then you just some way you get into government. And you find yourself in the Midwest, and you're working for Deed. You were what? Tell us exactly what you were for Deed again.
Yeah, I was the commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development, or Deed, as you say.
Yes, that sounds really cool.
Lengthy.
What does it mean?
It's the jobs commissioner.
Okay, got it.
You work for the governor. You're reporting to him and his team. You're part of the cabinet, and your job is to grow jobs, which is what I kind of came on to do. Certainly through the lens of Silicon Valley, trying to grow startup jobs. But a year into that role, the pandemic hit. And in a month, we lost almost 500,000 jobs. And so suddenly it was not a jobs creation commissioner role. It was more like a pandemic mitigation job.
Yeah, and save the world.
Yeah, it felt very different, right? It was a crisis.
So did you ever think you would work for a presidential candidate? I mean, so it's kind of like you have the Obama there before he makes it. Then you work with Governor Walz. Like, do we kind of see the pattern happening?
Yeah, right.
Well, maybe I may be a presidential candidate.
Yeah, I guess you're next, Jovonta. Yeah.
I could be next.
Yeah. Why not? Why not you?
So, and how was it working and then seeing him go into this presidential candidate?
I mean, I was incredibly proud of him as someone who I consider a friend, and certainly that I admire and look up to and worked for. I think he did an admirable job in a very unique campaign scenario. I think he was a great choice. I think the politics of that moment were tough. I think the loss was unfortunate, obviously, as someone who voted for him and would have liked to have seen him in that position. But I think he's got a strong future. I think that, the governor comes at his role from the perspective of someone who, even to this day, is very much still that teacher, soldier, kind of coach personality who hasn't lost his roots. And, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but I would say it was fun to get to see him on a national stage. It was fun to see the rest of the country get to know.
Absolutely.
Minnesota's dad and,
Minnesota's dad. Oh, yeah. That's really good. Minnesota's dad. Yeah. And I was happy. I don't think I think we have had a presidential candidate from politics in Minnesota, but it was probably so long ago that
it was a big deal.
Yeah,
it was short.
It was short, but it was such a big deal. I mean, the Timberwolves looked like they were about to win, and we had a presidential candidate. I mean, the Minnesota was how I found myself in the Midwest at that particular moment.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Yeah, I appreciate the work that you did with Deed. Just getting to know that, and you talked about Chandra. And she told me all the great things that you did. Then you ended up, I mean, your journey, now you're in journalism, like you're at the top of journalism, which that could kind of tie with Google and YouTube, but at the time it necessarily would not have. So how do you feel now, because you are the CEO of Star Tribune? How is that?
Yeah, it's I never had predicted I would be a newspaper publisher. I certainly didn't come from that background. I'd done a little bit of journalism, but again, like I mentioned before, very briefly. The reason I'm here, honestly, is that the Star Tribune was looking for an outsider to come in and help them reimagine the organization. Journalism faces an intense crisis right now. 2/3 of the journalists in our state that were here 10 years ago have left the profession. And the Strip itself, we call it the Strip, as you know, in Minnesota, has faced its own headwinds. I mean, our whole business model is turning upside down. And so Glenn, the owner of the Star Tribune, and the board were looking for an outsider, and they were looking to reinvest in it, to give it a shot at really shifting it from not just a newspaper with a website, but more of a modern digital media company that happens to also print a newspaper, which is a huge transformation effort. And it just felt to me like, gosh, that's a problem kind of worth tackling. I don't know if we'll figure it out in every way possible.
I think you're doing a good job.
We're doing our best.
Because I'm reading, I have read way more digital stories.
Have you? Good.
Yes, with Star Tribune.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do have to.
We write about you a decent amount, because you're doing a lot of cool stuff.
Thank you guys for writing about me. Please keep writing about me. I need it. Chris, Reimerstein.
Yeah, Reimerschneider, yeah.
Okay, Reimerschneider. Okay, yeah. Chris, I will say this about Chris. Chris does an incredible job being a music journalist here.
Good. Yeah.
And I say that because sometimes what I do could possibly be overlooked. And Chris, since 2016, has made sure that he has made a story about me or come to a concert, or when I did my show at First Avenue, he called them and got
awesome.
got on the list, and they're used to him.
Yeah.
But I'm glad he treated my show like he would treat, any other act that I see him going to see. And so shout out to Chris, because you actually know who Chris is. So yeah, shout out to Chris.
We got some talented journalists, and he's one of them. And we've a cultural scene
and I'm
here.
glad he hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Because then when he writes about music, he's able to have a philosophy of if something is really great or if it's really impactful or if it's a normative.
Yeah.
So I love him. Now, you talked about, recently I heard you talk about trying to figure out like content, how to make digital content with what you have, and how to turn the Trib into more of a, not turn into, but you talked about, I think it was like 800,000 people that do newspaper every day. I'm trying to remember the statistics.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a fascinating sort of numbers game, if you will. I mean, in the state, we got about 5.5 million people. We'd love everyone to have a subscription. We know that's not going to happen in every case, but we think we have a lot of headroom for digital subscription. We've got some great deals at Startribune.com. But the print subscriptions go down every year by about 20%. So you're trying to grow your digital subs. At the same time, your print subs are just going down because that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
I mean, very few people pick up a newspaper anymore. And so you want to serve those customers, but also draw in new ones. And I think more broadly, as a media business, we're looking for new ways to generate revenue, right? So philanthropy is one of them. Money from sponsorships and events is another. We're going big into high school sports.
Okay.
You pick a narrow space where like there's a lot of interest and loyalty, and you can do more than just being this kind of broad based publication. So we're trying to do a lot at once. And I will say this, it feels good to be doing it in a state where I think people do value good journalism, and Minnesotans, seem to really care about it. So I give us a good fighting shot.
Yeah, we love it. And I love the fact about high school sports and different things like that, because it now will gain more teenagers to click. And if you digitize it, then they will be more interested when they see their name and different things like that. Now, this is an off the grid question, but it goes along with it. But do stores buy a bulk of newspaper, or do you guys send them the newspaper and hope people buy it as a means, as a vendor?
It's more the latter. We get paid for the papers we sell.
Okay.
That single copy sale, the kind of buying it at the grocery store or the gas station, is still a decent source of revenue for us.
Okay.
Of course, we deliver the papers too. And we're moving more into enterprise subscriptions. So say Target could get a subscription for every employee to get a copy of the paper, for example. And so we're looking into...
do employees really like that, or is it just like a...
some do. I mean, the goal is to have that available. If you're a Minnesota-based company, your employees knowing about our state is important. And
very important.
Yeah, so that's a new business area for us. But look, the Strip's part of our culture. We have to remind people that we're here, though. I mean, the same with you're an artist and you're out there talking about your work, you're doing stuff like this. We got to do the same. We're trying to poke our heads up. We have a big presence at the state fair now. We're putting billboards up. Yeah, the Strip's been around forever, but if we don't be more proactive about what we're up to.
And be involved with a newer generation and make them fall in love with you being the source of news.
That's right.
So let's go back to the book.
Yeah.
What is your favorite chapter in the book and why?
There's a chapter at near the end of the book in the Boundary Waters that encapsulates a trip that my dad and I, my brother and brother-in-law took that was a really meaningful moment in my life, because my dad and I got to come together on topics of spirituality and work through some stuff together. And it was fun to write just because it was very personal and meant a lot. And also just the Boundary Waters is this kind of gorgeous, amazing Minnesota jewel that to describe and write about felt really
where is
too.
that?
And it's up near the border of Canada. It's like an outdoor wilderness canoe area. So you're like canoeing between islands and camping really remotely, and you're off the grid completely, no cell phone service. And so it was fun to write about nature and fun to write about that experience. But then the meaningful conversations that I had there, that was a meaningful chapter. But the book kind of wigs and wags. I mean, you're in, Silicon Valley one minute, next you're in the heart of, the pandemic war rooms the next minute, you're in Boundary Waters the next. So it kind of gives a picture of Minnesota, I hope, that folks from here appreciate, and has some surprises.
So how do you find time to be a husband and a father of 2 kids? Because I saw one of your son was playing, I think it was Minecraft. Yeah, as you should. But like, you have some pretty serious jobs. How did you find time to be married and to be a father. And even still, I mean, being the CEO of a Star Tribune and being an author of a new book, and you're on a book tour.
Yeah.
Like, there is no, your network is just so glorious, but your time is well spent. How do you be a father and a husband? Like, do you get a date night? Like, your wife is so supportive. She was doing content herself. I said, oh my
she's
gosh.
good. She's better than I am at this stuff, actually.
She was great.
I appreciate you asking. I mean, I think for you, probably the same question we could flip, right? It's hard. There's a lot you're juggling, and I can't say I get it perfect every time. I will say having a good partner makes a huge difference. You know, you and Simone do an amazing job together. We're trying to figure it out too. I think having grandparents nearby has been helpful too, just to be totally honest about it.
For the win.
For the win, right? Like coming back to part of the reason we find ourselves in the Midwest is we knew we'd have some family here that could help us out.
Yeah, that can support. You can let your kids go there and not worry if they will be alive when you come back.
Yeah. That's a nice thing to know. You don't have to keep
calling them like, how are they? Like, I raised you. They're fine.
That's right. You know, I mean, that's a good feeling. So help is, I guess, one answer. A good partner is the other. And just talking it through and trying. I mean, I feel, I don't use a dad, but I sometimes put a lot of pressure on myself to get it right. And when I don't get it right, I can be a little self-critical. I'm like, I wish I had handled that differently. And that's just an aspect of parenting that I think you have to kind of get through and try to give myself and my kids and our family some grace. But we have a good thing going. You know, we do prioritize each other. I feel like I get a lot of time with them, and Mary does too. And we trade back and forth.
Absolutely. And then, did you self-publish this book, or did you find an amazing publisher?
No, Simon & Schuster published it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really neat. They're one of the big 5 publishers in New York. And
okay, nice.
That's a nice thing, because I think I'm hopeful that the book will get some energy outside of the Twin Cities and outside of Minnesota, because it does give a view of this area that I hope outsiders can appreciate. The working title of the book was actually Fly Over No More. This idea of like, don't fly over us, fly here, check it out.
So you're trying to bring, you know, and I love the title of the book and the purpose of it, because even in my industry, sometimes people just overlook us.
They do.
They don't think we have anything to offer. And it's like, we have so much. Like, we made the medical device that saved your grandmother's life. Like,
that's right.
We have something, you know.
Do.
So grateful for you using one of the big 5 publishers and being a part of Google. Your job history is cool to this new generation. At least it's cool to me.
Well,
you know, because sometimes like, I've been working in the mill all day long. We respect your job, but it's not always seen as cool. Yeah. So when I first met you and he's like, I worked at Google and I worked at YouTube, it's like, huh? Wait, those are real jobs? And
people do actually work there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I appreciate what you're trying to. Now, will we see your book in Target, or I know it's in Barnes & Noble, right? Where can we get it? Where can we get your book?
Yeah. So stevegrove.com is my website. That's probably the quickest way. But if you have an independent bookstore in your community, go there, because it is in most independent bookstores right now, especially in Minnesota.
And then the big publisher distributes it.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Barnes & Noble, so you can get there, and then will it be at Barnes & Noble in your local
independent bookstore? Yeah,
that's really good. So what do you think, from the deed background, from the digital background, from now the Star Tribune, and an author background and a Minnesota vet background, where do you see Minnesota when it comes to using AI, when it comes to us being a city?
Yeah.
You know, us in the news for the right reasons, because, you know, what do you see us in the next, I guess I'll end here. Where do you see us in the next 5 years? Yeah. Like, where will we be?
I am a big believer in this state. I think it's a pretty special place.
Yeah.
I think it's got some really unique advantages in terms of talent, the density of great businesses here, the natural resources. We've also got a lot of challenges and paradoxes, which I write about in the book, and you and I have talked about a lot, the gaps that exist in our society. But when it comes to technology and innovation, I think we have a leg up on some things. This was, at one time, actually, the supercomputer capital of the world. The biggest computers in the world were built here. In fact...
Was it Microsoft?
Well, Microsoft wasn't started here, but Control Data Corporation, Honeywell, some of these very early predecessors to those companies really took flight here.
Grandfather companies.
They are, you know, and that culture has persisted. Now, I think we still don't have enough risk-seeking behavior here. I think the comfort of a lot of Fortune 500s can lead entrepreneurs to take safer jobs. However, in medtech in particular, I think this is a state that really, really punches far above its weight, and is one of the best medtech ecosystems in the country. So back to AI and your question, I think Minnesota has opportunity to use some of these new technologies that at times feel scary and like they're being done to us, in proactive ways to do things for us. And I think a purpose-driven startup ecosystem that uses some of the latest and greatest technologies to accomplish ends that make life better for all people, can be a differentiator for us. Whereas I think sometimes the technologies you see in Silicon Valley can be a little bit more attention grabbing and, just trying to get your eyeballs for a gimmick. And I don't mean to be too glossy. There's purpose-driven people everywhere, but I think Minnesota has that kind of purpose-driven sensibility.
We have
it's
it.
Exciting. I'm
very excited. Okay, I'm going to grab my phone because I made some notes. The last time I heard you speak, and it was just really good. But I'm trying to see if
you missed anything.
Yeah, if I missed anything, or if I could. Your book release was on the 24th. So you talked about responsive content.
Mm-hmm.
$800,000 a year going away. Talks about that. See, I take notes if I'm on my phone.
You're like a journalist.
Yeah. If
you're looking for a new gig after all this Emmy award-winning music,
please call me.
Come to the Strip.
Getting people to care about the local news and leaning into podcasts, new avenues. One of the things that you really did talk about that I did enjoy was about public funding for journalism and starting to view journalism as a civic good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that. Elaborate like 5 seconds on that, but. I think that was great because a lot of people, even like me doing this podcast, most of these things are self-funded, hoping that places like your old job, YouTube or Google, that they'll throw you in the right algorithm and people will click it. But until then, I have to just let the people who respect who you are and respect who I am get this information. But talk more about that kind of funding, because you come from the deed standpoint and then you come from the digital standpoint and now the Star Tribune standpoint. Talk more about that, because I just thought that was one of the most wow, you get it. Like there needs to be some funding for journalism.
There has to be. If you really squint hard, it's hard to see the business model working otherwise. There are models out there that work. The BBC funds, the British government funds the BBC in the UK. Even here in the US, we've seen some programs in different states come together where there's like a payroll tax break for a news organization when they hire a journalist, or the incentives for advertisers to spend money with local media companies. I just don't see at the end of the day, if journalism is the same kind of civic good that healthcare is, or plumbing is, or the internet is, which I would argue it is, because when you have good journalism, you have higher voter participation, greater civic togetherness, stronger outcomes. Then we have to find other ways to fund it, because the reality is most of your listeners may not even subscribe to a single news organization. They just don't think that they should pay for news. And I get it. We've kind of trained a new generation of news consumers to say, the news will find me. Whereas it used to be, you have to go out and subscribe.
The news will find me is the mindset.
It is, you know what I mean? And so we're trying to do both. It's on us as a company to go out and get subscribers. But I think collectively as a society, if we don't want to see journalism fall over a cliff, we're going to have to find new ways to fund it that aren't just paying for subscriptions.
Well, I am so glad that someone like you that lives in Minnesota gets the up-to-date fight. Because some people are and it's like, that makes no sense. But everything you're saying is making sense. But just thinking that the news will find me is really the mindset. I've never thought about it that way or said it that way. So now I have a new term of saying it. You think the news will find you, but knowing about a road closed locally or anything like that, that is a Star Tribune.
It is. It's fact-based journalism. It seems kind of basic to even say it, but that's what we do, is objective reporting.
Yeah.
And that's worth something, that costs money.
And how do you guys feel about your Instagram or TikTok following? Is that still a growing
thing? We're hanging in there.
Hey.
We're pretty good on Instagram. Check us out. On TikTok, we're all right, too.
There you go.
We're learning. These are mediums that traditional newspapers don't usually do very well, because we're all about the 850-word article kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we got teams figuring it out.
So 850-word article is
typical length of a piece, something like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now with ChatGPT, when I have to do when it says a text message only be 400 characters, I'll be say what I'm trying to say, and I put what I'm trying to say and make it 400 characters. Are you guys using AI with stories yet, or you wouldn't know?
The journalists, I think, use it certainly from a research capacity, but we do not write any stories using AI. That's really important. We want to make sure it's our voice.
That's good.
You don't want robots, reporters doing stuff that.
Wait, say that again. Now, this is a good clip. How does Star Tribune not use AI?
Well, we don't use it to write stories. We don't want robot reporters telling you the news. Otherwise, why would you pay for that, right? So we use it for research, but we don't want to use it for how we ultimately compile all that research into the facts that we want to relay to our readers. So it's You still need humans to do this work. The machine cannot do everything, believe it or not.
The machine cannot do everything. Well, Steve, thank you. You guys get his book, How I Found Myself in the Midwest. You can order it at stevegrove.com, or you can go to your local store, your local bookstore. If you're in Minnesota, that's an easy find. But if you are somewhere abroad watching, you can go to Barnes & Noble.
Yep.
And get it there. And he's a part of the Big Five publishers. So let's make him a bestseller. Go get the book. I have my copy. I'm going to buy another one because it is a good read. But thank you, Steve, for coming.
Thanks, Jovonta.
And all of your busyness. I don't even know if you had the time. So you coming lets me know that I need to go to more places too, because this was good.
Thanks for having me.
And great book release.
Love the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much. See you guys.
This is my show.
We're gonna have a blast with conversations that last. Sit back, relax, send in the group chat, the Jovonta Patton Podcast.